Chapter 2075, The Disintegrating Seal, 2. When Yi Qingtang finally came out of her stupor, 3 days had already passed. She felt a huge weight on her chest when she woke up and forced herself to look up. A fluffy, white thing was lying squarely on her chest. Yi Qingtang was speechless. The little white tiger was in deep slumber when a force pushed it to the ground. "Damn it, who did that?" the little white tiger said, fiercely rolled on the ground. It lifted its eyes and saw an expressionless Yi Qingtang staring at it. The little white tiger jumped onto the bed and exclaimed, "You're finally awake." She nodded. "I was afraid I was going to die in my sleep if I didn't wake up." The little white tiger froze, asking, "What happened? Why would you die?" "I thought I was going to be crushed to death." Yi Qingtang twisted her lips and looked at the little white tiger's round body. "Did you gain weight recently?" A fierce glare was directed towards her. "What are you saying? Who did you say gained weight? Don't spout rubbish." The little white tiger sucked in its stomach as it spoke, but its soft tummy still bulged out. "No, that wasn't it. It hadn't gained weight, it had just grown up." The little white tiger was extremely dejected. It came from the race of white tigers and was the benchmark for all other fiend celestial beasts. He was supposed to have balanced bones and honed muscles. However, Yi Qingtang rarely brought it out in the Temple of Shadows, and since it was the Holy Lord of Shadow's precious pet, everything it asked for was given to it. The bored little white tiger could only eat its loneliness away. It had also been moving around less, so gradually. Could it be blamed that flab had started collecting around its stomach? Yi Qingtang looked at the little white tiger and stuck out her hand to poke its soft tummy. "Stop it! You beast!" The little white tiger shouted as it clutched its stomach. "You damned woman, how dare you touch my stomach? What else would I do?" She looked at how round the little white tiger had gotten and confirmed that it had indeed gained weight. "Fiend celestial beasts don't get fat," the little white tiger argued as it turned pale. Yi Qingtang felt that it was just deceiving itself. "How long have I been out for?" she asked as she got out of bed. 3 days. "You really know how to sleep," the little white tiger replied. 3 days, what happened to me?" She frowned. Many things had happened extremely quickly that day and her memories were a mess. "Who knows," the little white tiger said as it moved its gaze away. He kept silent about all that had happened when she was asleep and didn't mention Ling Yan and the heart of the heavenly Tao. Yi Qingtang could sense that there was something more it wasn't saying. Even though the pain had been unbearable and it had already been 3 days, she still remembered what happened that day. She touched her chest subconsciously as a strange feeling came from it. She had felt this before. But in her previous life, she had suffered pain so terrible that it almost killed her when the heart of the heavenly Tao had broken out of her. A frown crossed her face. She had almost forgotten that the heart of the heavenly Tao didn't belong to her after the divine phoenix had sealed it. But now, the heart of the heavenly Tao was showing signs of leaking. This was not a good sign for her. Chapter 2076, Powerful Enemies, 1. Before she could figure out whether there was anything wrong with the divine phoenix seal, someone knocked on her door. "Holy Lord, Mi has something to discuss with you. He's waiting in the main hall." Shui Fu's voice drifted in from the outside. Mi was looking for her. Her heart jolted. It was probably something important if it made me so worried. Putting on her clothes, she picked up the plump, little white tiger and carried it outside with her. In the main hall, the Crimson League alien race people who were with me were already standing inside. They all glanced at her as she entered. The 8 tribe leaders and Ming Wang were inside as well. "Mo Yao, I have something to discuss with you." Miss Surreal voice was heavy. From his tone, she could tell that something bad had happened when she was sleeping. "What happened?" she asked. Mi didn't speak up immediately and handed over a letter with the Crimson League seal on it to her. She opened it and read the contents. A strange look flashed past her eyes. The Heavenly Wolf Sect. Yi Qingtang looked at the contents of the letter and read out the familiar yet foreign words. The Heavenly Wolf Sect is one of the powers of the second domain. Even though they're not on the same mainland as us, they're nothing to scoff at. This letter was delivered to me today, Mi slowly said. The Heavenly Wolf Sect and the Crimson League were on par with each other. In the past, they did not interact with each other but got into a fight due to some conflict thousands of years ago. They fought many small and big battles, but in the end, it was still hard to determine the winner. The Crimson League had already sent people to infiltrate the Heavenly Wolf Sect and gather information. Even though the spies had been unable to enter the inner circle, they had still been able to find out some information. A few days prior, the Heavenly Wolf Sect had sent a small troop to the first domain. Are you worried that the Heavenly Wolf Sect might go to the central mainland? Yi Qingtang asked. Mi nodded. It's not impossible. We had to be so secretive about coming to the first domain this time because letting the other powers know about the spirit of chaos would only make them flock here. The Crimson League had to obtain the spirit of chaos, but the Heavenly Wolf Sect had nothing to do with the first domain. It was extremely suspicious that they had suddenly sent people to the first domain at such a sensitive time. Your worries might be true, she said. Mi froze. It had only been a nagging suspicion in his mind without any evidence, but Yi Qingtang's words seemed to suggest that she knew something more. What do you mean? She said, when we were attacking the ancient Yu clan's underground world, I was informed that the city lord wasn't present. From what I know, he has not returned and seems to have vanished from the central mainland. She had many theories with regards to his disappearance, but now it seemed that it had coincided nicely with the actions of the Heavenly Wolf Sect. Chapter 2077, Powerful Enemies, 2. What exactly in the first domain could have caught their attention to this extent? Yi Qingtang couldn't think of anything else other than Little Yu Yun and the Spirit of Chaos. The ancient Yu clan had suffered huge losses this time. Knowing them, they wouldn't take this lying down. It seemed like they were going to use the same tactic as Yi Qingtang and use the Spirit of Chaos to goad the Heavenly Wolf Sect into action. Just as she was talking to me, a Temple of Shadows guard ran up to report to her in a panic. Holy Lord of Shadows, about 100 meters away, there is a huge troop of soldiers and horses rushing towards us. We also saw several ancient Yu clan elders within the troops. Yi Qingtang and me exchanged glances the moment they heard the news. Could you be right? I hope that I'm wrong. The faces of the 8 tribe leaders darkened. They were all from the second domain, so of course, they knew of the Heavenly Wolf Sect. The Crimson League was formed by the top powers of the second domain, but the Heavenly Wolf Sect consisted of all the villains. The Heavenly Wolf Sect was made up of countless murderers and people with no regard for the rules. And they were all extremely powerful. The strongest, fiercest, and most powerful of them all was the leader. It was not an exaggeration to say that their reputation in the second domain was terrifying. This was a group that was difficult to deal with. That shouldn't be possible, right? What does the ancient Yu clan have to offer the Heavenly Wolf Sect? The demon tribe leader said. You're right. There's no way the Heavenly Wolf Sect would bother with a power from the first domain, the goblin tribe leader said. Ming Wang looked at the debating 8 tribe leaders and said, there's no way the Heavenly Wolf Sect would have any interest in the ancient Yu clan, but they would definitely be interested in the Spirit of Chaos. And they were going up against the Crimson League, which they were already in conflict with. Knowing their character, they would probably take action. It was not a hopeful situation. Could you see who the ancient Yu clan was with? She asked the soldier. The soldier replied, they seem to be wearing black armor and their helmet is in the shape of a wolf head. This was enough for all of them to surmise. It's the Heavenly Wolf Sect. Mi's voice was heavy. Bai Ji, gather our men immediately, he ordered. Since the ancient Yu clan was the one who had invited the Heavenly Wolf Sect over, it meant that they already knew the size of their army. The Crimson League had not brought many people over to the Crimson League this time and would suffer huge losses if the Heavenly Wolf Sect had come prepared. Bai Ji didn't dare waste any more time and went to prepare for the battle immediately. If the Heavenly Wolf Sect were to attack us today, they won't rest until we're all dead. I didn't bring enough men this time. If we confront them, it will cause huge losses on our side. Even me, who was usually very proud of himself, couldn't express any words of confidence. Since they were old rivals, he knew their way of fighting well. Mo Yao, I'll leave you to take care of the manpower in the Temple of Shadows, Mi said before leaving. With the collapse of the ancient Yu clan's underground world, their power had disappeared and the remaining members had all scattered. As such, the ancient clans could finally be at peace. With the huge victory, they had all returned to their original homes, ready to make a comeback. Chapter 2078, Powerful Enemies, 3. The only people left in the Temple of Shadows were the Undead clan. Even the Jiang family had been sent back to their homes by Yi Qingtang. Likewise, the North Star Demon Lord had left with the Demon clan as well. But a powerful enemy had suddenly appeared in front of them. After she had sent the 8 tribe leaders and Ming Wang away, she walked over to Ling Yan's room, kicked down his door, and dragged him out. She was clearly a head shorter than him but looked fierce as she dragged him away. Miss Yi. He was amused as she dragged him away, and the Azure Dragon hurried after them. Did she already notice? Is Ling Yan going to die? The Azure Dragon thought meanly. Yi Qingtang didn't say a single word as she dragged Ling Yan into Ning Luo's room. Ning Luo was taking care of little Yu Yun in the room and looked at her in puzzlement as she entered. Seeing that everyone was there, she spoke up. You must all leave the Temple of Shadows right away. The further you go, the better. What? Ning Luo asked in shock. Wasting no time, Yi Qingtang helped Ning Luo pack the medications for little Yu Yun as she said, the ancient Yu clan has roped in powers from the second domain to fight us and they're heading toward the Temple of Shadows right now. They're here for the spirit of chaos. Ning Luo, I'm leaving little Yu Yun and little Luo Shui in your care. I trust that you won't let them fall into anyone else's hands. As she said this, she stuffed the space ring which was full of items into his hands. Ning Luo looked at her strangely and said, What do you mean? You're going to stay here? With a smile, she only said, I'm the Holy Lord of Shadows. How could I leave? If she left, she wouldn't even have to worry about the Heavenly Wolf sect. The Crimson League would kill her first. Furthermore, the entire Temple of Shadows would be dragged into the mess. Ning Luo's eyes were complicated. But in the end, he decided to leave with little Yu Yun and little Luo Shui. Before he left, he said, Yi Qingtang. She looked at him. You shouldn't die here. With that, he turned and left quickly. Seeing that Ning Luo had left with little Yu Yun and little Luo Shui, her lips curled up into a smile. Everyone in the First Mainland could be revived as long as little Yu Yun was safe. She had settled one problem. With that, she turned to Ling Yan who was behind her and said, You've heard everything that I've said. I don't need to say any more, do I? Ling Yan smiled slightly and said, Miss Yi wants me to leave. So why aren't you leaving? She said with a light laugh. Ling Yan had helped her too many times. She couldn't let him die here. As soon as the battle started, Ling Yan wouldn't be able to protect himself with his capabilities. I guess I have no choice but to respectfully obey, he said with a smile, immediately agreeing to her request without any hesitation. Yi Qingtang was taken aback. This damned rascal. Couldn't he at least pretend a little? Go now, or you won't be able to leave once the battle starts. They were running out of time. The Heavenly Wolf sect was about to reach them and she left as soon as she heard his answer. Ling Yan smiled at her back and brought the Azure Dragon back to their room. After packing his possessions, he prepared to leave the Temple of Shadows. Chapter 2079, Heavenly Wolf Sect, 1. Little Azure Dragon looked at Ling Yan, who wasn't hesitant to leave, with a complicated expression. You're just going to leave like that? What else can I do? Ling Yan smiled. The Heavenly Wolf Sect came prepared. I don't think the Crimson League will be able to handle them. Yi Qingtang will face danger. Aren't you afraid that she's going to die here? Little Azure Dragon couldn't figure out what was going on in Ling Yan's head. Ling Yan didn't respond. He merely lifted his head to look at the sky. Little Azure Dragon was perplexed. It just couldn't understand what Ling Yan was planning. He was already ready to die on her behalf, but now... What was Ling Yan plotting? 5,000 meters away from the Temple of Shadows. The troops rushed over and even the ground vibrated. The Crimson League and Temple of Shadows joined forces to form troops that gathered outside the entrance of the Temple of Shadows. The expressions on everyone's faces were somber. Various clans had learned that the ancient Yu clan was going to attack the second domain. The clans finally experienced some peace after the destruction of the ancient Yu clan's underground world and returned to where they belong. However, today they came together to face the last battle for the central mainland. If the Temple of Shadows were to lose, the clans would open the doors to revenge from the ancient Yu clan. This battle was a battle for their imminent survival. The sound of war drums rang. Everyone lifted their heads, only to see countless soldiers charge over, almost drowning them. Suddenly they heard a roar from above. Lifting their heads, they noticed numerous flying mounts that soared in the sky. Yi Qingtang looked at the Heavenly Wolf Sect and the ancient Yu clan's army and her heart sank, while she tried to look at me with her peripheral vision. Though she couldn't see his face, she could sense from his cold aura that he probably felt the same way as her. Is that Lu Xiao, one of the 12 sect custodians from the Heavenly Wolf Sect? Bai Zhi's eyes narrowed when she saw a handsome man riding on the back of a huge demonic beast among the Heavenly Wolf Sect's troops. Shui Mao is here too. The Crimson League had bad ties with the Heavenly Wolf Sect for a long time already. They naturally knew who were the powerful ones in the Heavenly Wolf Sect. When the Crimson League saw the Heavenly Wolf Sect send their elites over, they couldn't help but feel even moodier. As one of the 12 sect custodians, his powers were akin to that of the Deputy League Chief. That meant that he was a strong opponent, even in the second domain. Although Mi and Bai Zhi were considerably powerful among the Crimson League, they weren't as powerful as the Deputy League Chief. The Heavenly Wolf Sect has planned things thoroughly. It seems like they want to get rid of us with just one attempt. Bai Zhi grit her teeth angrily before she continued, I've sent someone to relay the news to the second domain. With the 2 sect custodians leading them, we shouldn't fight them yet. Why don't we wait for the reinforcements to arrive before starting the battle? Mi shook his head. There won't be any reinforcements. What? Bai Zhi was stunned. Yi Qingtang remained calm, she had the exact thoughts. The Heavenly Wolf Sect obviously won't leave any chances for us. They might have already taken action and arranged something in the second domain to interrupt our plans. If not, why wouldn't the Crimson League send any help even though they should have learned of the news earlier than us? Chapter 2080, Heavenly Wolf Sect, 2. Yi Qingtang knew from the start that the reinforcements from the Crimson League had been interrupted by the Heavenly Wolf Sect. They wouldn't be able to come and help them out in the first domain. Bai Zhi's expression darkened. Mi, what are the chances of winning over the 2 sect custodians? Bai Zhi could only pin her hopes on Mi, who was the most powerful out of them. Mi replied, if I were to just pick one of them to battle, there's only a 10% chance of winning. Mi's reply made the sticky situation even worse. Mo Yao, you handle the 2 sect custodians with Ming Di. Mi's gaze landed on Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang was speechless. What did he just say? Mi hadn't noticed anything wrong with Yi Qingtang yet, so he continued, you have been hiding your capabilities from others. Even now, I still haven't figured out how powerful you are. I lost when I challenged you 10,000 years ago. Now, we can only count on you and Ming Di as our last hope. She remained silent. She hadn't expected the Holy Lord of Shadows to be that powerful. As she had witnessed Mi's powers before. To think that even Mi wasn't the Holy Lord of Shadows match. Hearing from Mi, the 2 sect custodians were capable of destroying him and Bai Zhi. Her powers. It was clear that her holy venerate powers weren't enough. She wanted to defeat them too, but she wasn't capable of doing so. A deep sense of despair filled her. It was really difficult to pose as the Holy Lord of Shadows, not just anyone was capable of doing it. As me and Yi Qingtang were discussing their strategy, the ancient Yu clan and the Heavenly Wolf Sect's army were almost upon them. The two people leading in front were the two sect custodians, Lu Xiao and Shui Mao. I was thinking who the Crimson League would send. It turns out it's me and Bai Ji, a woman with an ethereal appearance approached. She scanned the Crimson League's army with her eyes, and when she noticed me and Bai Ji, the corners of her lips hitched up. Elder Yuan stood beside Lu Xiao and Shui Mao. When he heard Shui Mao's words, his heart almost skipped a beat. He had seen me and Bai Ji's capabilities with his own eyes. Even the elite youths that were trained by the ancient Yu clan weren't able to hold in for long when they fought against them. They were that powerful, but they sounded pathetic when Shui Mao talked about them. Elder Yuan couldn't help but turn to look at the clan master. A smile was on the clan master's face. The Heavenly Wolf Sect's powers are comparable to the Crimson League in the second domain. Moreover, the Heavenly Wolf Sect has expanded over the years and is capable of defeating the Crimson League, Clan Master said. While the Clan Master was talking, Lu Xiao suddenly lifted his arm. A glimmer of light appeared on his palm, transforming into a sharp sword, and he waved it with light movements. The sword aura started acting on the Crimson League's army. Boom! The ground was split into two halves and a huge crack appeared in the middle. It only took one moment and the various clans were flabbergasted by the sword's alarming power. Even then Lu Xiao had a poker face on. He merely looked at me, who stood at the front of the army, and spoke with a calm voice. Hand over the fragments of the spirit of chaos and I can consider leaving your corpse intact in one whole piece. Chapter 2081, Heavenly Wolf Sect, 3, The deathly aura surrounding me was intensifying. The move was merely a warning, but Lu Xiao clearly demonstrated his great powers. Even me wouldn't be confident when faced with Lu Xiao's one move. Lu Xiao was indeed someone to be reckoned with. No wonder the various clans from the second domain gathered together to fight him. He overpowered everyone from the Crimson League. Mo Yao, Mi suddenly called out. Return to the Temple of Shadows now and take the fragments of the Spirit of Chaos as well as the vessel with you. Mi took a deep breath. He previously thought that Mo Yao and Ming Di could at least try to fight the sect custodians. Now, Mi planned to just give up and stop struggling. With Lu Xiao's capabilities, there was no way they could overpower him. Even if victory was nowhere near, they would never hand over the fragments of the Spirit of Chaos to the Heavenly Wolf Sect. The Spirit of Chaos must return to the Crimson League. Yi Qingtang could sense Mi's intentions and she lowered her eyes. The exact moment Mi finished speaking, Shui Mao made a move, unlike the patient Lu Xiao. She leaped and huge waves formed underneath her body. A huge water dragon appeared just like that. Xiao, don't be so impatient. Since we're already here in the first domain, why don't we have some fun first? A devious smile appeared on Shui Mao's face. Not only do I want the Spirit of Chaos, but I also want their lives too. The moment she finished her sentence, the water dragon started charging towards the Crimson League's army. When the water dragon charged over, vines as thick as human arms suddenly started bursting out of the ground and formed a huge protective net in front of the Crimson League's army. Boom! The water dragon collided into the huge protective net. Though the protective barrier appeared to be as tough as steel, it instantly shattered upon the impact of the water dragon. PSS. The moment the protective net shattered, Bai Ji suffered a counter-effect. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Mi acted quickly, lifting his arm to create gusts of black wind to entrap the water dragon. Even so, the water dragon moved about quickly without being affected and it formed counter-effects on him, causing havoc in his breath. The other Crimson League members quickly moved in to help and barely managed to put the water dragon under control. The satisfaction Shui Mao felt was apparent when she saw Crimson League mobilizing almost everyone just to handle a water dragon. The other ancient clans from the central mainland witnessed that too and they were all flabbergasted. So that was the real capabilities of the top powers from the second domain. They recalled that when the supposed strong powers from the second domain first came to the first domain, they just had to join forces to fight them and not suffer huge injuries. Now, they finally realized that those supposed strong powers from the second domain weren't even that powerful. When faced with real powers, they were just like ants that could be easily crushed. They didn't need anyone more. Just the 2 sect custodians from the Heavenly Wolf sect were enough to wipe them all out. Everyone was consumed in fear. The ancient Yu clan was in high spirits. Once they handed over the spirit of chaos to the Heavenly Wolf sect, they could secretly take little Yu away. The Crimson League and Holy Lord of Shadows would be defeated and suffer a miserable loss. From then on, the central mainland would belong to them. The ancient Yu clan could eventually use little Yun's spiritual abode to cultivate and attack the second domain when the time came. Then it would only be a matter of time before they became the most powerful clan. Chapter 2082, Instant Kill, 1, Roar. All of a sudden, a loud dragon's roar ripped the sky apart. Mi was too exhausted to even deal with it, but he suddenly spotted a huge figure that flew to attack the terrifying water dragon. Stunned, Mi quickly lifted his eyes to look up. All he could see was Yi Qingtang riding on Ming Dis back. The water dragon started turning into water droplets that only glimmered under the sunlight. Yi Qingtang was certain that if the Crimson League were to lose, the entire Temple of Shadows and Central Mainland would be taken away. Little Yun was once taken away right in front of her. She was never going to let history repeat itself. Her foster father, her master. She had to do anything and everything to make them come back to this world. As Yi Qingtang scanned the Temple of Shadows' undead clan and had a somewhat gentle gaze. Though she was forced into this role, it was undeniable that she kind of liked this damned undead clan. Shui Mao hadn't expected someone from the Crimson League to outdo the water dragon. She narrowed her eyes and tried to make another move, but was interrupted by Lu Xiao. Mo Yao, it's been long. Lu Xiao lifted his head, looking at Yi Qingtang, who rode on the demon dragon's back. Tears trickled down Yi Qingtang's cheeks. She looked at Lu Xiao from above without any expression on her face. He was one of the 12 sect custodians, and it turned out he was acquainted with the Holy Lord of Shadows. Yi Qingtang had no idea how many more secrets the Holy Lord of Shadows kept. Lu Xiao clearly knew that it was the Holy Lord of Shadows, so he didn't allow Shui Mao to attack yet. I heard that you came to the first domain long ago. I didn't expect us to be able to meet again. Great, we can have some closure today. Lu Xiao had a sinister look on his face. Yi Qingtang was shocked. Darn. So it turned out he had some bad blood with the Holy Lord of Shadows. Lu Xiao suddenly transformed into a beam of light, flying up the sky to charge towards Yi Qingtang. Smoke and fire erupted into the skies as Ming Di instantly breathed hot air in his direction. Lu Xiao paused in the sky, holding a sharp sword to fight Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang was glad that she had Ming Di with her. When she was still thinking about it, Shui Mao flew up into the sky too. Let me deal with the demon dragon. Shui Mao smiled as she prepared her moves. I've got to give it to you for breaking down my water dragon earlier, but this time, I don't think you can last that long. Ming Di's eyes were filled with a murderous aura as he charged towards Shui Mao. Of course, Ming Di assumed the Holy Lord of Shadows wouldn't need his help. Yi Qingtang was speechless. Calm down. Now there's no one to interrupt us. Lu Xiao glared at Yi Qingtang with a murderous look. Chill. Yi Qingtang looked at the murderous Lu Xiao and was filled with despair. Ah Yao. Ming Gu saw the dangerous situation and flew up. Ming Wang also followed right behind. Right as they were flying up, a few youths from the ancient Yu clan followed and interrupted them. Kill them. The ancient Yu clan's clan master ordered with a murderous look on his face. Once he gave the orders, almost everyone from the ancient Yu clan moved. The groans from the Heavenly Wolf Sect's war beasts were never-ending. The horn signals rang and the Heavenly Wolf Sect's army charged forward. It only took a moment and the Heavenly Wolf Sect's army was in a chaotic skirmish to the death with the Crimson League's army. Chapter 2083, Instant Kill, 2. The entire Central Mainland army that was mainly made up of the Temple of Shadows also charged towards the battlefield. It only took a few minutes before the entire battlefield was completely chaotic and the strong acrid scent of blood permeated the air. Corpses were laying everywhere, with blood spilled as far as the eye could see. Death was common on battlefields. The Heavenly Wolf sect had far exceeded the Crimson League in terms of the number of soldiers and had an overwhelming advantage. Bloody corpses were everywhere. Although the battle had just begun and the various ancient clans already had many casualties. However, no one cowered. Everyone was giving it their all to eliminate the enemies. In the sky, Lu Xiao suddenly raised his sword and struck at Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang wasn't powerful enough to handle Lu Xiao. She could barely even catch his shadow. Right when Yi Qingtang thought that it was about time to die, a beam of holy light appeared from above and she was surrounded by the light. Lu Xiao struck his sword over the holy light and he flew away from the impact. What in the world had happened? The holy light passed through Yi Qingtang and struck the battlefield, instantly splitting the battlefield. Me and the others present were all stunned. They heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing the holy light separate the Heavenly Wolf sect and the ancient Yu clan from them. The holy light was extremely powerful. The moment it landed on the ground, it instantly burned all the living creatures that came into contact with it into ashes. No matter the Heavenly Wolf sect or the Crimson League, none of them had a chance at escaping. They were burned into ashes, becoming one with the ground. What terrifying power! Everyone was shocked and they subconsciously looked over to the holy light. A six-winged fire phoenix appeared before their eyes in the sky. The fire phoenix glimmered and it was akin to a sun, floating above the sky. The six-winged fire phoenix. Is that a heavenly beast? Bai Ji was stunned, with shock written all over her face. They could somehow see two figures riding on the back of the six-winged fire phoenix. They were both dressed in white robes and were calm and collected, looking at the battlefield from above. They seemed to not be affected by anyone at all. Lu Xiao stared at the six-winged fire phoenix in astonishment. She realized that when the six-winged fire phoenix appeared, the beasts in the battlefield whimpered when they saw it. It was as though they saw something terrorizing. They crouched over, lowering their heads, and didn't dare to make a single move. The flying beasts also stopped moving, they landed on the ground and didn't dare to fly back up into the sky. All that was left behind in the sky was the glimmering six-winged fire phoenix. The beasts were all paying their respects. Yi Qingtang was surrounded by the holy light and she felt like she was controlled by a certain force. She couldn't move even the slightest and lifted her eyes to look over. The two figures riding on the six-winged fire phoenix's back appeared before her eyes. One of them was the man who suddenly challenged her at the Temple of Shadows that day. What was going on? Yi Qingtang was confused. When he saw that familiar face, his heart raced. Lu Xiao looked at the six-winged fire phoenix in front of him with narrowed eyes. He would have managed to kill Yi Qingtang earlier if they hadn't come into the picture. Chapter 2084, Instant Kill, 3, with their appearance, Yi Qingtang was saved. Were they sent by the Crimson League? Lu Xiao and Shui Mao instantly exchanged glances. They acted at the same time. Two powerful beams of light struck in the six-winged fire phoenix's direction. Right before it struck the two figures riding on the six-winged fire phoenix's back, a middle-aged man in his 40s looked over. With a wave of an arm, the two beams of light just vanished into nothing. Lu Xiao and Shui Mao's faces darkened. What a hindrance, the man said. He looked at Lu Xiao and Shui Mao with displeasure, as though they were merely ashes that had landed on his sleeves. The next moment, he lifted his arm and a glimmering beam of golden light came out from his palm. It shot towards Lu Xiao and Shui Mao. Within seconds, the light penetrated through Lu Xiao and Shui Mao. They didn't even have a chance to retaliate and were burned into ashes in an instant. Even then the light didn't disappear. After shooting Lu Xiao and Shui Mao, it landed on the Heavenly Wolf sect and ancient Yu clan's army. Shining on them all. Every living creature that was shown by the light started turning into ashes. Everyone was stupefied. The Crimson League and members of the Central Mainland looked at the burnt piece of land in disbelief. Just a while ago, the Heavenly Wolf Sect and Ancient Yu Clan's army stood there. But now, all that was left behind was ashes. What? What kind of insanity is this? An ancient clan elder was almost breathless. There were hundreds of thousands of living creatures and this man just made one move to burn all of them into ashes? That made everyone's hair stand on end. If the light just slightly shone over, wouldn't they also die? Thump. Mi went down on his knees and bowed his head respectfully at the two figures riding on the six-winged fire phoenix, in front of everyone. We welcome the supremacy. The entire Crimson League went down on their knees and bowed. The others from the Central Mainland didn't know who they were, but after witnessing their prowess, they knelt too. Yi Qingtang was completely taken aback. She was only certain that they didn't belong to the Crimson League. Judging from his attitude, they certainly were much more powerful than the Crimson League. Yi Qingtang was still guessing their identities when the holy light started forcing her towards the six-winged fire phoenix. Elder, that's her. It was the young man that challenged her that day. He pointed Yi Qingtang out to the elder after he saw her. The middle-aged man's gaze riveted on Yi Qingtang's face. Once he saw her face, he couldn't help but furrow his brows, seemingly trying to recall something. May I know? Yi Qingtang hadn't finished speaking. The holy light that surrounded her suddenly became gold chains that held her captive. Yi Qingtang was speechless. What on earth was going on? Chapter 2085, Temple of Paragon, 1. Before the people from the Temple of Shadows had time to process what had just happened, the six-winged fire phoenix burst through the clouds and disappeared. Ah Yao. Minggu watched as Yi Qingtang disappeared right in front of his eyes and took off after them. But only after a few meters, Ming Di suddenly spread open his wings and stopped him as well as Ming Wang, who had chased after him. Ming Di. Ming Wang frowned at him. I don't care if you die but... Mo Yao is going to be upset if you die in front of her. Ming Di sprayed fire from his mouth as he pinned Ming Wang and Ming Wang onto the ground with his claws. Ming Di, let go of me. Ming Gu said agitatedly. Ming Di flapped his wings but showed no signs of letting them go. You can't even escape from me, and you want to chase after them? Do you want to die? Ming Di said coldly. Don't say I didn't warn you. Even I am no match for the six-winged fire phoenix, let alone the two people on its back. Ming Gu and Ming Di were stunned. They had the impression all along that Ming Di was wildly arrogant, killing as he pleased in the second domain, with the only person he feared being the Holy Lord of Shadows. But he had just admitted that he was no match for the six-winged fire phoenix. Ming Di is right. They're not opponents you can take on. We don't know yet whether it's a good or bad thing that Mo Yao has been taken, but you will both die if you chase after them, Mi said as he got up. Who are they? Ming Wang's eyes were helpless as he lay pinned to the ground. Mi lifted his head slightly to look into the distance. The Temple of Paragon. The 4 words flowed out of Mi's mouth, making Ming Wang freeze in an instant. Ming Di sensed the change in him and quickly let him go. However, Ming Gu had no idea who they were. Once he was free, he quickly grabbed Ming Wang and flew after Yi Qingtang. But this time, it was Ming Wang who grabbed his wrist and held him back. Brother? Ming Gu looked at Ming Wang with a strange expression. Ming Wang didn't say anything, only holding his brother's wrist tightly and not letting him leave. Are you sure? Ming Wang looked at me before his searching eyes landed on Ming Di. Ming Di spoke. I don't recognize the two people on its back but I remember the six-winged fire phoenix. I fought 3 days and 3 nights with it and came out defeated in the end. After that, I heard that it had moved to the Temple of Paragon. It seems like Mi is telling the truth. There was no way Ming Di would have talked about his defeat if he wasn't afraid that Ming Wang was going to die if he went after them. All those years ago, Ming Di had been wreaking havoc all over the place, not holding any regard for any other creatures. But he had accidentally disturbed the six-winged fire phoenix's rest. He had made it sound nicer, saying that they had battled for 3 days and 3 nights. But in reality, he was the one who had been hunted by the 6-winged fire phoenix for 3 days and 3 nights and almost died under the 6-winged fire phoenix's fire. The Temple of Paragon? What's that? Brother, why aren't you going after Ah Yao? Ming Gu tried to get free but it was useless. Ming Wang's expression was extremely grim. The Temple of Paragon is the top power in the second domain. Any single one of them can destroy the entire first domain. Ming Wang's voice was helpless. Chapter 2086, Temple of Paragon, 2. Ming Wang had never imagined that they would cross paths with the Temple of Paragon one day. Even though the Crimson League was a huge power in the second domain, the power of the Temple of Paragon was beyond them and they were an entity that normal people couldn't even dream of touching. The Crimson League probably wouldn't even be able to reach their front gate even if they all attacked together. For the first time in his life, Ming Wang was experiencing a huge gap in his abilities. Ming Gu was stunned. But Ah Yao, the Temple of Paragon has never come into contact with Emo Yao before. The mainland that the Temple of Paragon is at is different from the mainland that we are at as well, so maybe taking Emo Yao away is nothing bad after all, Mi said. But he had no idea why they had taken her. He was just glad that he knew someone from the Temple of Paragon. That person had for some reason appeared in the first domain and Mi had met him coincidentally when they were fighting the ancient Yu clan. But he had vanished suddenly after that, which made me extremely puzzled. However, given that he was from the Temple of Paragon, it meant he wasn't someone Mi could question easily. Ming Gu wanted to speak but Ming Wang pushed him forward. In front of them, the air was filled with ashes and the smell of burnt flesh. As Ming Gu looked at everything around him, he felt as though someone was squeezing his throat. The people from the Temple of Paragon had reduced the Heavenly Wolf Sect and ancient Yu clan troops to ash with just a lift of their hand. What terrifying power! Seeing that Ming Gu was still in shock, Ming Wang sighed deeply and looked at me. The central mainland accepted us back previously, but now that everything in the central mainland has settled down, are we still allowed to return to the second domain? Mi looked at Ming Wang. Even though Yi Qingtang had been taken away right in front of him, Ming Di was still here, which meant that they still qualified to return to the Crimson League. He nodded slightly. Ming Wang's eyes filled with determination. As long as they returned to the second domain, they might be able to see Yi Qingtang. On the mountain, a slim figure stood between the bamboo plants. He was looking at the scorched earth as well as the Crimson League and Temple of Shadows members discussing at the foot of the mountain. The Azure Dragon stood to the side looking at Ling Yan, who was the one standing among the bamboo plants. Ling Yan hadn't left like Yi Qingtang thought he did. He had brought the Azure Dragon to this mountain and personally witnessed the entire battle. Which meant he had seen with his own 2 eyes Yi Qingtang being taken away by the 6-winged fire phoenix. After seeing all of this, he turned and walked back towards the Temple of Shadows. At this moment, the Crimson League troops and the Temple of Shadows forces were still on the battlefield and the Temple of Shadows was empty. He walked through the quiet main hall towards the underground path and walked to the Hall of Gloom. Lighting the fire on the wall, once again the almost illusionary pagoda appeared in front of him. The Azure Dragon looked at him strangely. But before he could speak, Ling Yan climbed onto the pagoda, opened the altar where the Spirit of Chaos was placed and put the fragments and the container inside. So you've had your eye on the Spirit of Chaos this entire time, Ling Yan. The Azure Dragon looked at Ling Yan with a complicated expression as he climbed up the pagoda. Chapter 2087, Temple of Paragon, 3. The little Azure Dragon finally understood why Ling Yan was doing all of this. It wasn't a coincidence that Ling Yan had appeared in the first mainland. Even the meeting with Yi Qingtang was planned, he had dragged her into his plan ever since the first time they had met. You asked her to impersonate the Holy Lord of Shadows because you already predicted that the ancient Yu clan would use the spiritual abode to try and take over the central mainland. And in that case, the Temple of Shadows would become everyone else's last hope. You were using her to collect the Spirit of Chaos fragments? The little Azure Dragon put together all the events that had occurred to date. Regardless of whether it was impersonating the Holy Lord of Shadows or seeking help from the Crimson League, weren't these all suggestions that Ling Yan had given her? The little azure dragon suddenly thought of something. No wonder. You didn't find it strange at all when she was taken away by the six-winged fire phoenix. Ling Yan, did you already know that this was going to happen? What exactly are you planning? Ling Yan looked at the little azure dragon coming to a realization, and his lips curved into a slight smile. The Azure Dragon clan is known for their intelligence. In that case, why don't you try figuring out what I'm up to? The little azure dragon's mouth twitched. It was only up against him that their clan would take such a blow in their intelligence. Even if you did all of this for the spirit of chaos fragments, there's only half of them here. The others, the little azure dragon was about to remind Ling Yan of this when Ling Yan's calm expression made him realize something. He must know where the remaining fragments were hidden. Ling Yan, were you helping Yi Qingtang all this time solely for your own goals? Or were you really trying to help her? The little azure dragon asked. Ling Yan smiled. Take a guess. Ling Yan's smile was mysterious, but the little azure dragon's mind was working wildly. It was easy to say that he was just making use of her, but hadn't he transferred her death tribulation onto himself? The death tribulation was already on his karmic natal chart. Despite all his intelligence, it wouldn't stop it from entering his body. I really don't understand you. It was the first time the little azure dragon completely couldn't understand Ling Yan's thoughts. He had planned for so long just to obtain the spirit of chaos. What use did the spirit of chaos have to him? Since you don't understand, keep on watching. Someday you'll get it, Ling Yan said lightly as he walked out of the Hall of Gloom. As he passed by the main hall, the little white tiger suddenly flashed past him as it flew into the main hall. Yi Qingtang had been afraid that the little white tiger would get involved, so she had locked it in her room. It had only managed to escape after knocking down the room door. Ling Yan looked at the little white tiger's back and his smile got wider. Without anyone knowing, Ling Yan brought the little azure dragon into the Temple of Shadows. At that very same time, Yi Qingtang was being brought out of the central mainland by the six-winged fire phoenix. She could feel a headache coming on as she looked at her own situation. They really look alike. The indifferent middle-aged man's eyes landed on Yi Qingtang's face. His eyes were completely void of emotion and it felt like she was looking at a dead person. Even then, he was closing inspecting her features. Chapter 2088, Clone 1. Yi Qingtang wanted to speak but realized that she couldn't move a single muscle. The gold chain around her was completely restraining her entire body. Although she was conscious, she couldn't move or speak and felt just like a statue. You're already tired? The middle-aged man retracted his gaze and looked at the boy. The boy said respectfully, yes. I tested her strength when I found her, and it is inferior. The inferior Yi Qingtang was lost for words. Of course, no one cared about her opinion. The boy continued, but I didn't know how to handle it, so I could only ask you for help. The middle-aged man nodded slightly. Elder, is she really the one who separated from the Holy Lord? The boy looked at Yi Qingtang as he asked the middle-aged man. The elder nodded and said, you're right. Many people look similar to each other in this world but none that look exactly the same. No matter how alike people may appear to each other, their figure, features, and bone structure will all have some slight differences. They wouldn't be exactly the same, even if they tried to alter themselves. They could always change their appearance but not their bone structure. The elder had already taken a look at her bones when she was bound by the golden chain and had confirmed that it was exactly the same. For someone to be identical to this degree, they could only be the person themselves, or a clone. We've been looking for this clone all these years. Who would have thought that she had hidden in the first domain? No wonder there were no signs of her when we were searching the second domain. How clever of her. Yi Qingtang listened to their conversation silently as it surprised her. Holy Lord? What did he mean by a clone? I heard that this clone appeared in the mainland where the Crimson League was over 10,000 years ago. After that, she gathered a group of undead clan members and built the Temple of Shadows. But she suddenly shifted everything to the first mainland after the Temple of Shadows was built. The boy repeated everything he had heard from me. As Yi Qingtang listened in on their conversation, she started picking up on some hints. It seemed that these two people had come from a strong power in the second domain. They were powerful enough to suppress the Crimson League and the Heavenly Wolf sect easily. And the one leading this power was the Holy Lord they were speaking of. A long time ago, their Holy Lord of Shadows had an accident which created a clone. The clone had escaped amid all the chaos to another mainland and created the Temple of Shadows in secret. Did that mean that the Holy Lord of Shadows was a clone? She was shocked by this news. The mighty Holy Lord of Shadows in the first domain was a mere clone. How terrifying was the main body then? She hadn't understood why the Holy Lord of Shadows had wanted to leave the second domain if she was so powerful that she would be at the top even in the second domain. But now she understood. So it turned out the Holy Lord of Shadows was running away. No wonder. The boy had given her such a request the first time they met. He had probably already been suspicious of her identity. Chapter 2089, Clone, 2, Yi Qingtang just couldn't figure out one particular thing. Since he could already confirm that she was a clone, why did he have to go the extra mile and challenge her? But now, what could she do? Yi Qingtang could only stand there without doing anything, even when she was filled with doubts. After all, these two people were far more powerful than her. She had no chances of escaping at all. They continued talking about other matters, not even bothering to hide anything from Yi Qingtang. Like that, Yi Qingtang was completely disregarded. She didn't pose any threat to them. They were that confident because of the disparity in their powers. Yi Qingtang could somehow infer from their conversation that their Holy Lord, the original one, was already dead. As for the Holy Lord of Shadows, Mo Yao, they couldn't condone her existence and would do anything to make her vanish. They respected their almighty Holy Lord and wanted to erase this dark history. Yi Qingtang was speechless. She needed a chance to explain. Very quickly, the six-winged fire phoenix took them away from the first domain and they headed to the second domain. As Yi Qingtang stepped into the second domain in this lifetime, it was with complicated feelings. She had been escaping for her life her previous lifetime, only to avoid those people eyeing the heart of heavenly Tao and to avoid being killed by Yi Yu. This lifetime, she finally stepped into the second domain again, but she was abducted over. The six-winged fire phoenix flew over the mainland, and when Yi Qingtang lowered her head to look, she could barely see any land or sea. It was flying so fast that everything was a mere blur to the point that it was stifling. After some time, the six-winged fire phoenix flew past an expanse of the sky that was filled with clouds. A mainland suddenly appeared before Yi Qingtang's eyes. Whenever the six-winged fire phoenix flew past, the flying creatures would dodge, lowering themselves to fly beneath the six-winged fire phoenix with respect. After flying past almost an entire mainland and alternating between daylight and moonlight, Yi Qingtang saw a mountain. It was a mammoth mountain that seemed to stretch into the heavens. The mountain itself had a weird appearance. While completely white, there wasn't any snow on it. It seems to be a mountain that was made up of white minerals. At the peak of the mountain, among the foggy sky, she saw a white palace. Suddenly, Yi Qingtang felt a sense of déjà vu: white mountains, foggy sky, and that white palace. In her past lifetime, Yi Qingtang might have overheard someone talking about a place that was similar to this while escaping the second domain. It was known as the Temple of Paragon, one of the greatest powers in the second domain. The Temple of Paragon was frighteningly powerful. No one knew exactly how powerful they were, but according to rumors, not many are able to see the Temple of Paragon with their own eyes. Could it be? Yi Qingtang looked at the scene before her eyes and something came into her mind. The Temple of Paragon. Only those from the Temple of Paragon were capable of instantly killing people from the Heavenly Wolf sect. Did that mean the Holy Lord they were talking about was the Holy Lord of the Temple of Paragon? As for the Holy Lord of Shadows, she was a clone. Chapter 2090, Clone, 3, this news was simply too much for her to take in now. Yi Qingtang would be glad to be taken into the temple of Paragon, if only she wasn't in such a state. Many powerful people would fight to enter this shrine. The six-winged fire phoenix landed outside the palace. Shortly after, a figure came from above, landing in front of the palace. It was a good-looking, winged being. The white palace made his wings appear even more pure and flawless. Yi Qingtang had seen quite a number of winged people in the central mainland and the second domain even in her past lifetime and current lifetime. She knew that once the winged people had achieved a certain level of capability, they would start growing silver-colored feathers in the insides of their wings. The feathers wouldn't be noticeable in normal periods, however, when they spread their wings, especially under the sunlight, the insides of their wings would sparkle just like stars in the sky. Even the most powerful winged person Yi Qingtang had met in her precious lifetime only had 3 silver feathers. This winged person in front of her. Yi Qingtang was about to be blinded by the dazzling feathers in the insides of his wings. He had a full set of silver feathers. Everyone from the Temple of Paragon was extraordinary. Greetings, Elder Bai. The other elders and guardians have been waiting in the main hall for quite some time, the winged person said politely. The elder nodded and with a light tap of a finger, a mysterious power compelled her to fly over. The winged person stood aside, lowering his eyes and not daring to look. The huge palace doors swung open, and Yi Qingtang's eyes were almost blinded by the dazzling scene before her. The next moment, she appeared in an enormous palace. She couldn't recall exactly how she entered the palace. Scanning the room covertly, she tried to look behind at the palace doors behind her. However, all she could see was rays of bedazzling light. Was this a parallel universe? Yi Qingtang was taken aback. After experiencing the deity ocean's twisted space, Yi Qingtang could sense a transfer between time and space, and she had sensed the same feeling earlier on. The Temple of Paragon's palace appeared to be built on the peak of a mountain. However, this door seemed to connect to the parallel universe. Yi Qingtang was astonished. How much power did they require to be able to transform a parallel universe into a powerful palace and control time and space? It was no wonder no one knew a thing about the Temple of Paragon. Even if they risked their lives and climbed onto the peak of the mountain to barge into the Temple of Paragon, they would be completely ruined by the parallel universe's twisted power after opening the door. Yi Qingtang could already sense the terrifying difference between the second domain's most powerful forces and the first domain's powers shortly after stepping into the Temple of Paragon's main hall. The disparity between the two was colossal, to the extent that they were simply incomparable. No wonder even the powerful Holy Lord of Shadows had to escape. In the main hall, facing the direction of the door, there were 12 steps on the stairs towards a throne, with descending widths. There were 6 other chairs with inscriptions 3 steps beneath the throne, with 3 on each side. The 7 seats were empty. There wasn't a single person in the huge palace, except for Yi Qingtang and the 2 people who had brought her there. The winged person clearly said that a few elders and guardians had been waiting for some time. Why was there no one to be seen? Yi Qingtang was puzzled. Chapter 2091, Soul-Absorbing Stage, 1. Right when Yi Qingtang was still feeling puzzled, an old-sounding voice suddenly rang in the empty main hall. It's her. Yi Qingtang couldn't see anyone speaking, but the voice in question seemed to drift into her ear, as though someone was speaking right beside her ear. Elder Bai nodded. Yes. Looking at her, I believe we've got the right person. No one else can imitate our Holy Lord's bone structure to this extent. This clone escaped back then, but now, we've finally found her. I think that we can answer to our late Holy Lord now. What has this clone been doing over the years? Another voice started talking. It was a female's voice, sounding somewhat casual. Elders, the young man who brought Yi Qingtang in began to report on everything regarding the Holy Lord of Shadows to a non-existent audience in the main hall. His expression was serious, as though the elders stood right in front of him. However, Yi Qingtang, she couldn't see a single person. How much stranger could the Temple of Paragon get? How dare a mere clone claim to be a holy lord? Forget it. Since we've already caught her, let's just forget what she did in the past. We should just send her to the soul-absorbing stage, according to the Holy Lord's instructions, and get rid of her. At this moment, Yi Qingtang was still bound by the gold chains. She couldn't move, neither could she talk. She could only listen to them discussing how to deal with her as though she were non-existent. There were at least 7 different voices, but she could not see a single person. Where were they? Elder Bai, we'll have to trouble you to take her to the soul-absorbing stage. All right. Elder Bai nodded and he tapped the ground with his feet. A ball of light suddenly appeared beside Yi Qingtang and Elder Bai's feet. The light blurred the entire scene before Yi Qingtang's eyes. When the light finally dissipated, Elder Bai, Yi Qingtang and the young man appeared at a platform in the palace. A mysterious, yet creepy-looking altar appeared on the platform, with radiant balls surrounding it. The balls wouldn't stop emitting illusory forces that seemed to play with the mind. Yi Qingtang was speechless. Couldn't they give her a chance? At least a chance to explain herself. She couldn't say a single word to defend herself nor move even the slightest bit. The people at the Temple of Paragon presumed she was the clone of the Temple of Paragon's Holy Lord. They didn't bother to give her an opportunity to explain herself and had already given her the death sentence. Elder, are we going to use this soul-absorbing stage to make this clone disappear? A man asked. The soul-absorbing stage had already existed when the Temple of Paragon was being built. As for the others at the Temple of Paragon, they rarely had the chance to witness the use of the soul-absorbing stage. Of course, Elder Bai said. If it's just an ordinary person's clone, we can easily destroy them. However, she is the Holy Lord's clone, so we cannot use ordinary methods. This soul-absorbing stage is able to absorb all clones. No matter how powerful the clone is, the soul-absorbing stage can crush them before sending them into the illusory space and they'll completely disappear, but this clone is not that powerful. She's at most a holy venerate. Isn't it wasteful to use the soul-absorbing stage for a clone of this level? Chapter 2092, Soul-Absorbing Stage, 2, Elder Bai shook his head. Even if she's not powerful, she's a clone of our Holy Lord. Our Holy Lord already instructed us to send her to the soul-absorbing stage once we found her. This is an order, we have to abide by it. Once he said that, with a light wave of an arm, Yi Qingtang was pushed into the soul-absorbing stage. The moment she entered the soul-absorbing stage, the light balls started moving. They started surrounding the soul-absorbing stage, forming lightning bolts to strike Yi Qingtang. She was doomed. After all she had been through, Yi Qingtang had never expected herself to just die like that after a rebirth. Elder Bai stood beside the soul-absorbing stage and he just watched as the lightning surrounded Yi Qingtang. He was waiting for this clone to disappear. Yi Qingtang thought that it would hurt badly once the lightning struck her. But she quickly noticed that it didn't seem to hurt. Although the lightning seemed terrifying as it struck at her, it was strange. She thought that it would hurt terribly, but she didn't feel a thing. In fact, the breeze brushing across her would be even more noticeable than this lightning. Yi Qingtang had a complicated expression. From what they said earlier, they seemed to not have utilized the soul-absorbing stage for a very long time. Was it faulty? Elder Bai hadn't noticed yet. He just thought that Yi Qingtang wasn't struggling because she was restricted by the gold chains. But time passed. Yi Qingtang stood in the middle of the soul-absorbing stage and nothing seemed to be happening, different from what they had expected. It appeared that she wasn't the least bit tortured. Elder Bai, why is there no reaction? The young man was puzzled. Elder Bai's brows knitted and he didn't say a word. After some time, even after the lightning struck multiple times, she remained unfazed. Seeing this, Elder Bai's expression darkened. Why is it like that? The soul-absorbing stage would never go faulty. The soul-absorbing stage was personally built by the Holy Lord. It had never had issues ever since the Temple of Paragon was built. But now, the unthinkable had happened. Elder Bai could somehow sense that something went wrong. Noticing that Yi Qingtang wasn't affected by the soul-absorbing stage at all, he lifted his arm and dragged Yi Qingtang out from the soul-absorbing stage. Return to the main hall. Elder Bai's voice was cold, and the next moment, white light appeared beside his feet. Yi Qingtang only saw some white light flash, and when she opened her eyes, she was back in the main hall again. Elder Bai stood beside her, with a solemn expression on his face. Elder Bai, why haven't you killed this clone yet? The same voices rang in the empty hall. They seemed to be puzzled when they realized that Yi Qingtang hadn't been disposed of. Their voices were filled with displeasure. I put her on the soul-absorbing stage and she stood there for an entire hour without even losing a strand of hair, Elder Bai reported with a cold expression on his face. Once he said that the entire main hall fell silent. After some time, a ray of red light appeared on the wall of the main hall. A tall figure suddenly came out of one of the portraits hanging on the wall. Chapter 2093, Soul-Absorbing Stage, 3, Yi Qingtang was speechless. What was going on in the Temple of Paragon? How could someone walk out of a portrait? Elder Bai, you're saying that the soul-absorbing stage doesn't work on her? An ethereal beauty walked out of the portrait. Her skin was fair and she walked over, her skirt trailing behind her. She walked over to Yi Qingtang and her charming almond-shaped eyes riveted on Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang could recognize her voice, it was the female voice that she had heard previously. Yes, for now, Elder Bai replied. The woman bent over slightly to look at Yi Qingtang with a sharp gaze. She was quite tall, her height almost comparable to that of a man. That shouldn't be the case. The soul-absorbing stage is able to destroy any clone that exists, including our Holy Lord's clone. Elder Yu, do you remember that we used the soul-absorbing stage to destroy one of our Holy Lord's clones back then? Once she said that another deep male voice was heard. Of course. We accompanied our Holy Lord to send the clone up to the soul-absorbing stage back then. Elder Bai, did anything strange happen when you sent her onto the stage earlier? Elder Hua turned around to ask Elder Bai. Elder Bai shook his head. It was the same as when our Holy Lord did it back then. How peculiar. Elder Hua's almond-shaped eyes narrowed. Her eyes riveted on the gold chains that trapped Yi Qingtang. She suddenly lifted her arm, tapping on the chains lightly with her fingertip, and the gold chains just turned into light, diffusing into the air. Elder Hua. Elder Bai was stunned. Since we can't figure out the reason, why don't we just let this clone explain herself? She's already back in the Temple of Paragon, she couldn't possibly escape in front of us. Elder Hua smiled. Elder Bai didn't say a word, he merely looked at Yi Qingtang with a cold expression. The moment the gold chains disappeared, Yi Qingtang was relieved. She felt as though she had gotten rid of an ill omen, and it felt really good. Looking at Elder Bai and Elder Hua, who were both staring at her, Yi Qingtang quickly came up with a plan. Hold on, you must be mistaken. I'm not the clone that you're looking for, Yi Qingtang said. She had to face this eventually. Since she had taken over the Holy Lord of Shadows' Temple of Shadows, she had to take on the identity of the Holy Lord of Shadows also. But she didn't want to just die here. Yi Qingtang was aware that she couldn't escape from the Temple of Paragon with her capabilities. Especially when they were bent on destroying her. That's all you have to say. The corners of Elder Hua's lips kicked up, she seemed to have already predicted what Yi Qingtang was going to say. I have no idea how you got away from the soul-absorbing stage, but do you really think that we'll believe you when just self-proclaimed that you're not a clone? I'm speaking the truth. I'm really not a clone, Yi Qingtang replied. She could never admit it. Once she did, she would die. Seeing that the two elders weren't convinced, Yi Qingtang instantly spoke up again. I speak the truth and only the truth. I'm sure that everyone at the Temple of Paragon is capable enough to distinguish whether I'm a clone or not. Chapter 2094, Reincarnation, 1, Yi Qingtang could only go all out. If they were still convinced that she was the clone, they wouldn't even need the soul-absorbing stage. They could easily destroy her with their capabilities. This was her last chance. You think that I'm a clone just because I look like your Holy Lord. However, there are many people who look alike. No one can prevent such coincidences, Yi Qingtang explained. The soul-absorbing stage is able to destroy all clones, but it just doesn't work on me. Isn't this enough proof? Elder Hua was originally just casually listening, but with the mention of the soul-absorbing stage, she grew suspicious. She didn't say anything and just gave Elder Bai a look. There are bound to be differences between clones and real humans. If we're going to investigate it, I'm sure we will have an outcome, Elder Bai said. Clones could bleed and have a consciousness of their own, however, there was one thing that could distinguish them from humans. Elder Bai and Elder Hua exchanged glances. Elder Hua slowly opened her hand and a pink lotus flower appeared on her palm. Grabbing onto Yi Qingtang's arm, Elder Bai made an incision on her hand using a dagger. Fresh blood dripped onto the lotus flower. The lotus flower started emitting gold lights. It took just a split moment for Elder Hua and Elder Bait to be confused. How could this be? The lotus flower was Elder Hua's Dharma artifact, it could discern all truth. If she was a clone, once her blood touched the lotus flower would close. If she was a human, the lotus flower would radiate. Elder Bai's face darkened when he saw it. He was convinced that he had captured the clone that had escaped for years. As Yi Qingtang watched their expressions, she could already surmise the outcome. I've said that I'm not a clone. Elder Bai's brows furrowed, not quite willing to believe it. That's impossible. You appeared right at the same time when our Holy Lord's clone escaped. Our Holy Lord decided to make you part of the undead clan when you were created. Yi Qingtang's eyes lit up and she smiled. Undead clan? Would the undead clan bleed? Elder Bai was stunned at Yi Qingtang's words. He was preoccupied with suspecting Yi Qingtang's identity that he forgot the undead clan would never bleed. You're not part of the undead clan? That's impossible. The Holy Lord of Shadows is part of the undead clan, Elder Bai said. Yi Qingtang heaved a sigh of relief when she heard what he said. All along she had been waiting for this sentence. I never said that I was the real Holy Lord of Shadows. What? This is a misunderstanding. I'm not the real Holy Lord of Shadows, I just resemble her. The Holy Lord of Shadows disappeared more than 10,000 years ago. Her disappearance caused the Temple of Shadows predicament in the central mainland. They needed someone to represent the Holy Lord of Shadows. Yi Qingtang sounded convincing. If you're not convinced, you can check my bone age. You can say that I faked everything else, but I can never fake my bone age. I'm only a normal human and am not older than 20. With that, Yi Qingtang stretched her arm out to let them inspect it. Chapter 2095, Reincarnation, 2, Elder Bai looked at Yi Qingtang suspiciously. He signaled for Elder Hua to check. Stretching her arm out, Elder Hua held onto Yi Qingtang's wrist. After a while, Elder Hua's expression turned complicated. Her bone age is not more than 20 years old, Elder Hua said. Surprise flashed past Elder Bai's eyes. Are you sure? Elder Hua nodded. Elder Hua wouldn't be wrong about it. Another voice was heard. If that's the case, she is a strange existence. I can't think of any other reason why there's someone with the same appearance and bone structure as our Holy Lord, other than the possibility of a clone. Yi Qingtang's identity made them rather confused. Appearances could change, but one's bone structure and bone age couldn't be faked. Even twins wouldn't have the same bone structure. Hold on, Elder Hua's tone suddenly became strange as she continued grasping Yi Qingtang's wrist. Her brows furrowed when she somehow noticed something odd about Yi Qingtang. You said that you're not older than 20. Elder Hua stared at Yi Qingtang as she asked. That's right, Yi Qingtang replied. Then can you tell me why you have more than 300 years of mental energy background? Elder Hua looked at Yi Qingtang with narrowed eyes. Yi Qingtang was shocked. How powerful was this Elder Hua? She could sense her mental energy just by touch. Furthermore, she knew it in such detail. What 300 years of mental energy? I don't get what you're saying. Yi Qingtang was bent on feigning. How could she dare to mention her rebirth to anyone? I would never be wrong about this. You have so much more mental energy than others your age. This mental energy isn't just willpower, it feels more like a carrier. This means that you have 300 more years of memories than your peers. Elder Hua gave Yi Qingtang a discerning look. Could it be possession? Elder Bai asked. Elder Hua shook her head. Elder Bai, you should know my capabilities. If she possessed someone, she could never hide it from me. Her soul belongs to this body. Our Holy Lord passed on back then and all of us refused to believe that with her power, she would end up like that. There's a possibility of reincarnation with the Holy Lord's cultivation techniques, a cold voice suddenly spoke up. Yi Qingtang looked over, only to see a figure gradually appear on one of the chairs along the steps. The person sat there gracefully, with his long legs crossed. He wore a fox mask that covered half of his face and his eyes were deep in thought. Guardian. You're saying that, our Holy Lord has reincarnated? Elder Hua looked at the man wearing the fox mask. It's possible. The Guardian got up and walked over to Yi Qingtang. With our Holy Lord's powers, even if she reincarnated, she wouldn't lose all her memories. However, none of us have gone through reincarnation. It's possible that after going through rounds of reincarnation, there would be partial memory loss. The Guardian riveted his gaze on Yi Qingtang right after he spoke. Exact appearance, unique bone structure, and more than 300 years of memories. He bent over slightly to look right at Yi Qingtang. Chapter 2096, Reincarnation, 3. Could you tell me where your extra 300 years of memories are from then? Yi Qingtang looked expressionlessly at this seemingly gentle but actually oppressive fox-faced man. I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. There's nothing extra in my memories. You must be mistaken. She could sense the situation turning strange. She had already proven that she wasn't a clone, but why did she get the feeling that these people from the Temple of Paragon were treating her as the reincarnation of their Holy Lord? She had no choice but to pose as the Holy Lord of Shadows previously, but was she supposed to pose as the Holy Lord of the Temple of Paragon now? The heavens didn't give her enough guts to do that. No matter how powerful the Temple of Shadows was, it was just a mere ant to the Temple of Paragon. Further to that, she didn't understand much about the second domain, let alone the elusive Temple of Paragon. She didn't want to take this risk. Do you really not remember anything? The fox-faced man looked at her with uncertainty. Almost as though he was trying to pick up some hints from her gaze. She nodded resolutely. He suddenly smiled and said, all right, since this was all a misunderstanding, I won't keep you any longer. You can leave. Yi Qingtang breathed a sigh of relief but couldn't shake the feeling that there was something strange in the way he had said it. Elder Hua, who was standing at the side, seemed to have something to say, but the fox-faced man gestured for her to hold her tongue. After looking at them a few more times, she turned to leave through the main hall. She didn't want to be involved with the Temple of Paragon. She walked towards the light and her slender figure passed right through it and straight out of the temple. All this was witnessed by the other elders and the fox-faced man. She really crossed it. A smile appeared in Elder Hua's eyes. She placed his hand on his chest and said, the Guardian is smart after all. The fox-faced man smiled. Elder Hua, aren't you going to get the Holy Lord back? Elder Hua nodded slightly as she vanished from the main hall. Yi Qingtang had just walked out of the main hall when she saw the winged man who she had met outside previously. The winged man seemed shocked to see her walk out alone. How did you come out? He asked in surprise. She replied, I walked out. What kind of question was that? The winged man had a complicated expression on his face. This woman was clearly not from the Temple of Paragon, so how did she just walk out like this? The winged man seemed to want to ask her something, but Elder Hua walked out of the main hall at that moment. The winged man dropped down to one knee. Greetings, Elder Hua. Seeing that Elder Hua had come out behind her, Yi Qingtang quickly turned to leave. But, please wait. Elder Hua flew in front of her as she smiled at her. It was our mistake for dragging you here so suddenly, so it's our responsibility to send you back to the first domain. But we are busy these few days, so we invite you to stay here for a few days. I will send someone to bring you back after that. There's no need for that. Yi Qingtang rejected her without hesitation as she shook her head. She had already experienced their embarrassment for the mistake. Who knew what was going to happen if she stayed any longer? The difference in their powers was too great. It would be better if she stopped having any further interaction with them. Chapter 2097, The Disintegrating Seal, 1, It's no trouble at all. We just don't want any harm to come to you, Elder Hua said with a smile. Yi Qingtang looked at her suspiciously. Seeing that she was listening, Elder Hua continued, since you're from the first domain, you're probably unfamiliar with the second domain. The mainland that the Temple of Paragon is on is surrounded by an ocean of waste. There are many void storms in the ocean, and you have to pass through all of these before you can leave. Is that true? She looked at Elder Hua, not fully trusting her words of caution. Elder Hua could feel Yi Qingtang's distrust towards her, but she wasn't worried. You were brought here by the six-winged fire phoenix. This simple sentence was enough to prove her point. After all, the six-winged fire phoenix was extremely strong, so it could easily withstand the void storms but Yi Qingtang. Once again she was left feeling the vast difference in their powers. But she suddenly thought of something as well. In her previous life when she had come to the second domain, she had indeed heard that there were strong forces between the mainlands. If you don't trust me, I can have someone to take you to the edge of the mainland so you can have a look, Elder Hua said. With that, Elder Hua lifted her chin at the winged man. The winged man got the message at once, but he was extremely curious as to what Yi Qingtang's identity was. Why did Elder Hua care so much about someone from the first domain? Who was this human? There's no need to, I believe you. Yi Qingtang went through all the information she had of the second domain in her mind. In her previous life, she had heard of both the Temple of Paragon as well as the void storms before. It was true that she didn't have the power to withstand it. She wasn't an idiot and could hear that Elder Hua wanted her to stay. After all, there was no way that every single person in the Temple of Paragon was so busy they couldn't make time to send her back. Since that's the case, I guess I'll stay for a few days. She decided to stay at the Temple of Paragon for now as she thought of ways to sneak away. Elder Hua smiled gently, satisfied with Yi Qingtang's reply. She brought her back into the main hall. The winged man looked as Yi Qingtang and Elder Hua returned to the main hall. He was surprised again when he saw her once again walk into the temple alone. That human, how could she move so freely in and out of the temple? The winged man wanted to try entering it himself but gave up in fear when he saw the illusionary space. Could the elders have given the ring to her? The winged man murmured, before dismissing the thought immediately. It was absurd to even think such a thing. Like that, Yi Qingtang was brought back into the temple by Elder Hua. When they entered, Elder Bai and the others in the main hall were already gone. Elder Hua materialized a colorful butterfly in her hand. It will take you to your room. Yi Qingtang nodded slightly and followed the butterfly out of the main hall. Elder Hua's smile vanished from her face as Yi Qingtang left. Guardian, are you certain she's the reincarnation of the Holy Lord? Elder Bai's voice rang out in the main hall but he was nowhere to be seen. I'm not 100% certain, but the possibility is high, the fox-faced man replied. Chapter 2098, The Disintegrating Seal, 2, She is so similar to the Holy Lord that even I cannot tell the difference between them. Her age and the extra 300 years worth of memories are extremely strange. You all saw for yourself just now as well, that she could leave this place of her own accord. How could she have done that if she was completely unrelated to the Holy Lord? The fox-faced man's words made the elders start pondering. This temple was built by the Holy Lord, who used the power of space to open the space door and create this dimension. You should all be clear that no one can enter this place without the Holy Lord's permission. The only reason we can come and go as we please is because we wear the rings containing the Holy Lord's word. Elder Hua seemed to agree with the fox-faced man. She lifted her right hand to look at the bronze ring on her finger. Elder Bai and the fox-faced man both had this ring. The elders who had yet to show themselves all had rings as well. They could only move in and out of the space that the Holy Lord had created when they were wearing the rings. Outsiders sound only step foot in the place if they brought them in personally. I already thought that it was weird when the girl walked out. The Holy Lord said before that other than people who have already mastered the power of space, no one else would be able to enter the space that she created. In all these years, have you ever seen someone with the power of space other than the Holy Lord? If she really does have some connection to the Holy Lord, don't you think that this is all too coincidental? The elder all started discussing among themselves whether Yi Qingtang really was the Holy Lord's reincarnation. Indeed, it was not possible for them to confirm this in such a short frame of time. As such, they all agreed with the fox-faced man's plan to get Yi Qingtang to stay in the Temple of Paragon in the meantime so they could observe her. As the Temple of Paragon was discussing Yi Qingtang's identity, she arrived at her room and found somewhere to sit down. She instinctively turned to the little white tiger to tell it about her day but realized that her side was empty when she looked over. I forgot, the little tiger was locked in the Temple of Shadows by me. Yi Qingtang twisted her lips. She wasn't used to being alone since she was used to having the little white tiger by her side to listen to her. I wonder if little Yu Yun has woken up, she sighed softly. Fortunately, the ancient Yu clan had been exterminated and the central mainland wasn't in danger anymore. The ancient Yu clan had been extremely secretive with little Yu Yun, which meant that the other tribes didn't know of her existence and she was safe. As soon as she spoke, she suddenly felt a chill on her chest. It felt as though something was rubbing against her chest through her clothes. She froze and opened up her jacket to take a look. A little creature as thick as her thumb was nestled nicely, fast asleep at her chest. Little lightning dragon. Her eyes widened as she looked at the little lightning dragon which she hadn't seen in a while. Her lips curved up into a smile. The little lightning dragon was back. When all the living creatures of the first mainland had been devoured by little Yu Yun, the little lightning dragon had not been so lucky. But now, the little lightning dragon had appeared again. Yi Qingtang suddenly had the thought that since the ancient Yu clan had been destroyed, Elder Yuan who had been controlling little Yu Yun and little Luo Shui was probably as dead as a doornail. Chapter 2099, The Disintegrating Seal, 3. Without the control of Elder Yuan, little Yu Yun and little Luo Shui would be regaining their will soon. My dear, I've missed you so much. Yi Qingtang was in a great mood. Scooping up the little lightning dragon into her hands, she gave it a light kiss. The little lightning dragon opened its eyes sleepily. It looked at Yi Qingtang in confusion, as though it had just taken a nap instead of being devoured. It was confused as to why Yi Qingtang was acting so warmly towards it. The little lightning dragon was back. Did that mean her master and father were back to normal? She wanted nothing more than to check for herself right then, but the thought of where she was deflated right away. Do the people from the Temple of Paragon actually think that I'm the reincarnation of their Holy Lord? Her eyebrows furrowed slightly. She had no choice but to impersonate the Holy Lord of Shadows previously and had almost lost her life a few times in the process. There was no way she wanted to experience that again, and the Temple of Paragon was over 100 times more powerful than the Temple of Shadows. Even 10 lives wouldn't be enough for her to mess with this giant. Yi Qingtang was determined to not have anything to do with the Temple of Paragon. She was going to deny any connection with their Holy Lord to the end and leave as early as possible. Just as she was thinking about this, a sudden pain shot through her chest. The immense pain made her break into a cold sweat and she passed out. A ball of light floated in front of her chest. The light gradually faded as black mist covered it. The little lightning dragon sensed the black mist and curled up. Poof! A black orb emerged from the light and jumped in front of the little lightning dragon. The little lightning dragon was trembling. It was here again. The little black orb shook itself. It seemed to be extremely weak now and looked at the little lightning dragon without having any intention to enter it. Damn divine phoenix, why did it have to seal me? The little black orb jumped up and down. It had been sealed by the divine phoenix in the heart of the heavenly Tao. It couldn't move an inch and most of its time was spent in deep slumber. Fortunately, the seal had slowly disintegrated during this period and it could start regaining its consciousness. The black orb started panicking when it saw the unconscious Yi Qingtang. Mother, mother, it knew that Yi Qingtang had left the first mainland, and probably even the first domain. Han Sangming had already vanished for a long time and hadn't shown himself since. What went wrong? The little black orb was extremely confused. It had no idea when things had started deviating from what it had thought would happen. Mother, you have to find father soon, the little black orb murmured. It was so weak that it couldn't even take over the little lightning dragon's body. The light suddenly shone again. In the next second, the little black orb was sucked back into the heart of the heavenly Tao. The divine phoenix's seal had not completely disintegrated yet. Damned divine phoenix. Yi Qingtang gradually woke up. She felt as though she had just been dragged out of the water. There was still an immense pressure on her chest which made her want to throw up. Chapter 2100, Try and Ill Lose, the seal of the divine phoenix is about to disappear. Yi Qingtang clutched her chest as her breathing turned heavy. She could feel the power that the divine phoenix had left and the heart of the heavenly Tao slowly vanishing. It wouldn't be too long before the seal completely disappeared. This was not good. She frowned. The heart of the heavenly Tao was a ticking time bomb. Even though it had been within her all this while, she had forgotten about it due to the divine phoenix seal and because her thoughts were occupied with saving little Yu Yun. But now, there would be great trouble if the seal completely disintegrated. She couldn't understand why the heart of the heavenly Tao had appeared within her. Somehow, her thoughts drifted to her mother. Perhaps the only way to understand why the heart of the heavenly Tao was there was to find her mother. The Dragon Emperor clan, she murmured the name of her mother's clan to herself. She had found a clue regarding her mother that day at the Mystic Realm when she had come into contact with someone from the Dragon Emperor clan. The Dragon Emperor clan was in the second domain. Her thoughts were racing. She had to find a way to leave the Temple of Paragon, to leave this mainland so that she could head towards the Dragon Emperor clan to find out more about her mother. However, she was rendered speechless by the four walls around her. What made the Temple of Paragon so sure that she was the reincarnation of their Holy Lord? Just because of her face and bone structure? No. It had to be because of her extra 300 years of memories that made them suspect that she was their Holy Lord. But what they didn't know was that her memories were from her previous life. How would she dare tell this to those in the Temple of Paragon? As for the Temple of Paragon's Holy Lord, she was a mystery in the second domain as well. Other than the fact that she was extremely powerful, no one else knew much about her. Yi Qingtang felt like, for someone so powerful that she could make the second domain tremble, her reincarnation would likely be planned. Not like Yi Qingtang's previous life. She didn't want to let this misunderstanding go on. The Temple of Paragon was going to smash her into smithereens if they found out about the truth one day. A knock came from her door as she was thinking of all this. She opened the door only to be greeted with a smiling Elder Hua. She kept silent. Are you bored in the temple? Why not let me take you around? Elder Hua said as she smiled charmingly. But her smile just made Yi Qingtang's hair stand on end. Since when were they this courteous? What a joke. To someone of their standing, accidentally capturing someone from the first domain was akin to accidentally killing an ant. How would someone from the first domain ever be important to them? She didn't have to think at all to know that her special treatment was only due to their suspicions of her identity. Thank you. Yi Qingtang had thought things through as well. They weren't going to believe her no matter how much she denied it, so she would just pretend that she had lost her memory. They would have their methods of determining the truth anyway, so all she had to do was cooperate with them. She would be able to leave after they confirmed that she wasn't the reincarnation of their Holy Lord. This oppressive feeling was terrible. Chapter 2101, Floating Island, 1. Elder Hua brought Yi Qingtang out of the palace and flew up to the sky. Yi Qingtang looked at Elder Hua, not sure where she was taking her. Even though the space they were in was vast, she mentally calculated the difference in their powers and gave up on escaping. She wouldn't even be able to get a meter away before Elder Hua caught her. As they flew into the sky and into the clouds, a floating island appeared suddenly in her sight. It was a floating island high in the sky, hidden in the clouds. No one would be able to find it without flying past the clouds. The mysterious temple of Paragon was only becoming more and more impressive in her eyes. "We're here," Elder Hua said as she landed on the floating island. This island wasn't big, but it was beautiful, with great mountains and clear waters. Yi Qingtang didn't make a move after landing. She wanted to see why Elder Hua had brought her here. "Elder Hua," a voice suddenly came from their side. Elder Hua's mouth rose into a slight smile. In the next second, many small figures were running towards her. They were a bunch of extremely cheerful kids. When she looked around, she saw that everyone on the island was extremely young. The oldest was not even over 10 years old. And there were many alien race children. "Elder Hua, you're here to see us?" A little winged child with pure white wings looked wide-eyed in reverence at Elder Hua. Elder Hua smiled gently and patted his head. "Have you been slacking off these few days?" We didn't, the little winged child shook his head hard as the other alien race children shook their heads as well. Yi Qingtang's eyes softened as she gazed at the children. There was no way she could keep her guard up against them. She couldn't help but think of little Yu Yun and little Luo Shui. "Elder Hua, who is she?" An alien race child looked curiously at Yi Qingtang. Elder Hua smiled and said, "Someone extremely important to me." The little children all gave an expression of understanding. Yi Qingtang's lips twitched a little. She was merely an innocent bystander. How was she Elder Hua's important person? Could she not spout nonsense? The little kids surrounded Elder Hua warmly for a while before gradually leaving to train. Elder Hua saw the curiosity in her eyes and said, "These kids may become members of the Temple of Paragon one day." Yi Qingtang instantly understood everything. These were kids recruited by the Temple of Paragon from the second domain. They were young but must have outstanding talent. After all, the Temple of Paragon only recruited the strong, and so they would pay great attention to the talents of these young children. They will stay on this floating island until they come of age. When they are of age, if they pass the examination, they will be able to join the Temple of Paragon. If they fail, we wipe their memory and send them back to where they came from, Elder Hua said lightly. There were hundreds to thousands of similar floating islands outside of the Temple of Paragon. Chapter 2102, Floating Island, 2. There were many talented children but not all of them would grow up to show as much potential as they had. Whether they could enter the Temple of Paragon or not depended on their ability as an adult. "I'm sorry, I don't think you should be telling all of this to a stranger." Yi Qingtang interrupted Elder Hua. She emphasized the word stranger. After all, she had no interest in the matters of the Temple of Paragon. The more Elder Hua told her, the more she wanted to cover her ears. The children on these floating islands could all have their memories wiped and sent back to where they were if they weren't good enough. And what about her? She didn't want her memories to be wiped. Elder Hua was stunned by her bluntness for a moment before smiling slightly. "I'm sorry, I forgot for a moment. Please don't see yourself as an outsider. The view on this island is beautiful so you can walk around by yourself for a while. I have other matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." With that, Elder Hua leaped into the air and left the floating island. She left Yi Qingtang standing alone where she was. Yi Qingtang was speechless as she gazed at the vanishing Elder Hua. Don't see herself as an outsider? No thank you. She would continue treating herself as an outsider. It wasn't difficult to guess that Elder Hua thought she was the reincarnation of their Holy Lord, which was why her words and actions were so suggestive. But Yi Qingtang couldn't stand it. How many times did she have to say that she wasn't the reincarnation of their Holy Lord? Was it appropriate for Elder Hua to leave an outsider somewhere they were building their power? Was she being generous or was it because the difference in their power was so great that Elder Hua could do whatever she wanted? Yi Qingtang sighed. She wanted nothing more than to take this chance to escape this place, but there was a feeling holding her back. Elder Hua must have only put her here if she wasn't afraid that she would escape. For all she knew, Elder Hua was waiting for her to return. So in the end, Yi Qingtang could only accept her fate for now. She would continue staying with them. With nothing else to do, she walked around the floating island. Like Elder Hua had said, there were a group of children on the island, the biggest of them not even coming up to her chest. Many of them weren't even up to her waist. She loved children. No matter how complicated and dirty the world got, in their eyes, everything was pure and clean. Having experienced a lifetime of turmoil, the children made her relax. After walking around the island, she sat down on a stone beside the pond. Resting her chin on one hand, she started thinking of how she could assuage their suspicions that she was the Holy Lord. Just when she was deep in thought, a loud sound blasted in her ear. A strong stream of air followed the sound. She lifted her eyes to take a look. A short distance away from her, a little winged child was floating in midair, both hands hanging by his belly with his fingers arched, and he tried to raise his dantian level. The sound she had heard was from the release of his energy. His face was filled with intense concentration as he continued to stimulate the power of his dantian. But right at the most important moment, he kept releasing the power. Chapter 2103, Floating Island, 3, Bored. She looked at the winged child as he tried again and again with stubborn determination. His eyes were rimmed with red and his nose was red as well as he choked back his sobs. Yi Qingtang's lips twitched a little. How long was this silly one going to try for? You're not going to succeed this way even if you try 1,000 times, she said with a sigh. The little winged child, who was deep in concentration, was startled by her voice. He turned to look at her as his wings shook gently and he landed in front of her. What do you mean? Why won't I succeed? The little winged child frowned and looked at her with red, panic-filled eyes. Nothing. I'm just speaking the truth. Yi Qingtang found it strange and was wondering where he had learned techniques that made her head hurt to look at. You. Her words sent the little winged child into a panic as his eyes filled with tears. Yi Qingtang felt like. How had she suddenly become a bully? You want to gather your energy? She was afraid that he was really going to start crying and quickly changed the topic. The little winged child nodded. Are you using your dantian to do it? She asked. He nodded again. That's wrong, she said with a soft sigh. Wrong? What do you mean? The little winged child looked at her in confusion. While humans and winged people are very similar, they're not the same. While humans can use the dantian to gather their energy, this method isn't as suitable for you winged people. There had been a difference in cultivation in the early years. The alien races had started cultivating later than the humans, which was why many of their techniques were borrowed from the humans. But as she had said, not all the methods that humans used were suitable for all the alien races. Try shifting the energy to the center of your chest, she suggested. The little winged child looked at her in doubt, not fully believing her words. But he remembered that Elder Hua had brought her here and decided to try it out. And it made his eyes light up immediately. I can gather my energy. His words were filled with joy. There's nothing wrong with my aura. I succeeded. The little winged man could feel the dense energy concentrated in the center of his chest, and it was cleaner than all his attempts previously. Infected with his apparent joy, she pointed to her chest and said, the origin of the winged people is in the center of their chest, which is where you should gather your energy. The dantian is the origin of humans. When you have a different origin, the place you gather your energy will be different too. Even though you winged people have a dantian, gathering your energy there isn't suitable. I know. The wardens have told me before that for winged people, we can switch and cultivate from the center of our chest after gathering our energy. But this is my first time hearing that we could gather energy there. The little winged child looked at her in joy. Gathering energy was the most basic foundation for the winged people but was also the thing they had the most trouble with. Chapter 2104, Knowing Beforehand, 1. It was difficult for the winged people to gather their energy with the dantian. Even those who were inherently talented found it hard to gather their energy using the dantian before they were 10 years old. However, the little winged child found it extremely easy to gather his energy after Yi Qingtang guided him along. Yi Qingtang was slightly taken aback. The little winged person's words reminded her. It was something she had overlooked all along. Having lived more than 300 years, she could remember the developments over the past 300 years. 300 years was enough for major developments and changes to happen. Many martial arts foundations were revised over the 300 years to become more stable and refined. It was the same logic as when the winged people practiced gathering their energy. It was only brought up by a genius winged person after 100 years. Yi Qingtang hadn't been able to stop and calm down this lifetime, so she forgot about this point. While she knew many forms of martial arts, it was of martial arts from the 300th year onwards. Yi Qingtang didn't know what to do at that moment. It was certainly remarkable for just anyone to know that much martial arts from 300 years later. However, Yi Qingtang's powers from her past life were limited. Most of the changes in martial arts she knew about were merely changes in basic skills. Coughs. Now you know. Yi Qingtang tried her best to not appear guilty. She was worried that her words earlier would attract the attention of the Temple of Paragon. But thinking about it from another perspective, these were merely basic martial arts. Even if the people from the Temple of Paragon learned about it, they wouldn't think much of it. They were so powerful, why would they even care about such basic skills? But Yi Qingtang didn't know that everything that happened on the floating island was being reported to Elder Hua and the others. In fact, she had completely underestimated the consequences of saying those words. In the main hall, a crystal ball that showed Yi Qingtang floated in the middle of the main hall. Elder Hua and Elder Bai stood in the main hall. A method for winged people to gather their energy? Elder Bai looked at everything that Yi Qingtang said and did through the crystal ball with knitted brows. Elder Yu, you're from the clan of winged people. Do you have anything to say about what she just said? Once Elder Bai said that, a glimmer of light appeared on the wall. A handsome winged man walked out from the portrait. He walked over to the crystal ball, looking at the little winged person who was ecstatic after gathering his energy. This is my first time hearing of such a method to gather energy. Does it work? Elder Bai asked. Elder Yu didn't reply. He carefully watched the little winged person gather his energy. Elder Yu? Elder Yu retracted his gaze and finally replied, I believe all of you can already tell whether it works or not. The entire main hall went quiet. Elder Bai asked a redundant question. They all saw with their own eyes that the little winged person successfully gathered his energy with Yi Qingtang's guidance. Though it was a basic skill for the clan of winged people, many winged people were stuck there with no way of developing further. They would waste a huge amount of time just trying to practice that step alone. Chapter 2105, Knowing Beforehand, 2. There were many changes and developments in martial arts, but one thing remained constant. The foundational skills. No matter how much time had passed, the basic foundation was the most important and most deep-rooted skill to possess. No one could change the foundational skills. One's foundation would have a large impact on future cultivation. It was precisely because of this that the clan of winged people was troubled for many years. At that moment, everyone fell silent. To think that a young lady from the first domain easily resolved a problem that troubled the clan of winged people for so many years. Do all of you really think that she's just an ordinary young lady? A voice came from one of the portraits hanging on the wall. These words struck everyone. We all know how backward the first domain is. Moreover, this young lady said that she's from the first mainland. That's the most backward place in the entire first domain. How long has she been in the central mainland? How could she know so much just by interacting with those alien races for such a short time? Even if she grew up in the central mainland, she couldn't possibly know all of that at this young age. Everyone started discussing once they heard those words. Their hearts palpitated at Yi Qingtang's capabilities. It's impossible that she's just an ordinary young lady. Even in the second domain, who would know as much as her? Elder Hua's brows lifted. I think that the fox demon elder is right. Other than our holy lord, who else knew this much about martial arts? Elder Hua retracted her gaze. She looked at Yi Qingtang in the crystal ball with admiration. Our holy lord is deserving of her title. Even when reincarnated as a human, she remains an elite. If she's really our reincarnated holy lord, why isn't she admitting it? Since she remembers martial arts, why can't she remember her identity? Someone questioned. You think that our holy lord needs memories to know all of that? Even with everything wiped out, it isn't difficult for our holy lord to start afresh and know all of that with her powers, Elder Hua said. Elder Hua's words made the elders immerse in thoughts. No one would deny the holy lord's powers and intelligence. On the floating island, Yi Qingtang had no idea that her every move was being watched by everyone at the Temple of Paragon. As she looked at the little winged child, he brightened her spirits. If only the heart of the heavenly Tao in her body wasn't threatening her survival, she would want to find a quiet place with good scenery and just lead a peaceful life. If she were to have a child, he or she must be this adorable. Somehow, when she thought about children, Ling Yan's face suddenly flashed past her mind. Yi Qingtang was astonished at that moment. What in the world? She didn't want a son like Ling Yan. Thank you. The little winged person seemed to not have noticed her abnormality and thanked her. Yi Qingtang pulled herself together and shook her head to get that ridiculousness out of her mind. Getting up, she prepared to walk around when she suddenly noticed. More little children appeared behind her. The little alien race children looked at Yi Qingtang with expectation. Yi Qingtang was speechless. What were they planning to do? Could you please help me too? I can't transform, they looked at Yi Qingtang pitifully with their furry ears sticking out. Chapter 2106, Knowing Beforehand, 3, Yi Qingtang was speechless. What about me? I can't control the energy inside my body. A little kid from the fire tribe with flames all over his body jumped out. If I set the floating island on fire one more time, the elders will kick me out. Yi Qingtang was surrounded by the little kids in an instant. They were all of young age and most of their problems were foundational. As they hadn't become part of the Temple of Paragon, they naturally didn't know what the Holy Lord looked like. They saw Yi Qingtang come with Elder Hua and they also saw that she was kind enough to guide the little winged child along. So it was no surprise that they thought that Yi Qingtang was sent by Elder Hua to teach them how to cultivate. Yi Qingtang wasn't planning to get involved. She wanted to reject them but these adorable kids started surrounding them. This was too unfair, they weren't playing by the rules. Yi Qingtang never liked being a busybody but when it came to children, she had a soft spot for them. Moreover, they were simply adorable. Come on, one at a time. In the end, Yi Qingtang could only give in. They only faced problems with foundational skills. After 300 years, solutions to these problems have been developed. It wasn't difficult for Yi Qingtang to just guide them along. After getting an answer from Yi Qingtang, their hearts were lifted. The children started queuing up, waiting for Yi Qingtang to answer their concerns. Everything was witnessed by the elders in the Temple of Paragon. They could take the previous incident of teaching the winged person how to gather his energy as a mere coincidence, but this time, they were completely stupefied. Yi Qingtang started offering advice for every little alien race. Though it was just foundational problems, her solutions made the elders in the Temple of Paragon completely stunned. The fire tribe can control themselves like that? The corners of Elder Bei's mouth twitched. Elder Hua was filled with admiration as she watched Yi Qingtang teach a little girl from the Ice Clan how to gather the icy air. Though it wasn't profound martial arts knowledge, her methods were a novelty for the various alien races. The results were flawless. Quite a number of elders who were convinced that Yi Qingtang wasn't a reincarnation of the Holy Lord couldn't say a single word when they witnessed the scene. If she wasn't a reincarnated Holy Lord, she would be a rare superhuman that would only appear once in 10,000 years. She was able to easily dispel the problems of the alien races and provide creative cultivation methods that had never been heard of at such a young age. Our Holy Lord is great. Even when she has reincarnated as a human, she still impresses us with her powers. Elder Hua was filled with admiration for Yi Qingtang. Though our Holy Lord has lost her memories, she still has retained pieces of her memories from 300 years ago. We just need to help her piece these memories together and she could perhaps recall everything from her past lifetime. Even if our Holy Lord can't remember anything, we can groom her to become even more powerful than what she was in her past lifetime. She is our Holy Lord, no matter what she has become this lifetime, she's still worthy of my respect. Many elders agreed with Elder Hua, except a small portion of elders who remained quiet. They were wary, and though they were impressed by Yi Qingtang's martial arts knowledge, they still couldn't easily attest to her identity. But they were nonetheless in favor of helping Yi Qingtang recover her memories and grooming her. Chapter 2107, Sea Clan 1. Elder Hua and the others were watching Yi Qingtang's every move. Yi Qingtang knew that she would never be the match of the people at the Temple of Paragon, and there was no way she could escape. She decided to just stay at the floating island and watch the children cultivate. With Yi Qingtang's guidance, the children quickly figured out the solutions to the problems they were facing. Yi Qingtang would never believe that these little children were this talented if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes. It was astounding. She only needed to go through it once and they could instantly comprehend her words. It took no time at all for them to acquire the skills. Putting aside their physical figures, the children surpassed everyone else by leaps and bounds. No wonder. It was no wonder that they were chosen by the Temple of Paragon. With their talent, they would be impressive once they're all grown up. However, this wasn't enough to enter the Temple of Paragon. She looked at the standards of the Temple of Paragon before recalling the others. Yi Qingtang suddenly realized that it wasn't surprising that the Heavenly Wolf Sect was easily destroyed. If they were to send just any one of the children on the floating island to the Crimson League or the Heavenly Wolf Sect, they would put in all their resources to nurture the child. However, looking at how the Temple of Paragon handled them, Yi Qingtang looked at the little children that were just left on their own on the floating island, and she couldn't help but to admire the Temple of Paragon's powers. The Temple of Paragon probably owned many other places that functioned like the floating island. There were probably countless versions of them. People from the second domain would die to form a connection with the Temple of Paragon. If only they hadn't thought that she was a reincarnated Holy Lord, Yi Qingtang would have been glad to foster a relationship with such great powers. Yi Qingtang was pondering over it. Meanwhile, the elders in the Temple of Paragon gathered in the main hall. Out of the elders that hid in the portraits, there was someone familiar. The fox demon, who was the guardian wearing a fox mask, sat down on one of the chairs. This was sent over by the bat spirit. The fox demon opened its hand, showing a water ripple token in his palm. When Elder Hua and the others saw the water ripple token, their expressions changed. The Sea King token. This was sent by the king of the Sea Clan. Elder Bei's brows knitted. The fox demon nodded. The Sea King oversees the oceans of both domains. However, the Sea King doesn't seem to be interested in fostering a good relationship with the Temple of Paragon. All these years, not a single person from the Sea Clan came. Why did the Sea King suddenly send the Sea King token? Elder Hua gave a suspicious look. The Sea King token represented the Sea King's wishes. It must have been the Sea King's intention. As the king of the oceans for both domains who wielded a great amount of power, why would he suddenly send the Sea King token to the Temple of Paragon? The Sea Clan doesn't have anything to do with the Temple of Paragon. Have all of you forgotten about the deal between our Holy Lord and the Sea King? Once the fox demon said that, everyone recalled the incident from tens of thousands of years ago. The Sea Clan lived in the ocean and they rarely interacted with the powers living on the land. However, how could anyone disregard the powerful Sea King who lived in the ocean? Chapter 2108, Sea Clan 2. The Sea King controlled the Sea Clan of the two domains. If the Sea Clan were able to live on land, they would be one of the largest clans in the second domain. The Temple of Paragon was situated on the peak of a mountain and did not have much to do with the Sea Clan. However, the Holy Lord came into contact with the Sea King due to various reasons. One wielded immense power over the oceans of both domains while the other had control over the greatest forces in the second domain. They couldn't give way to one another. However, neither of them was keen on starting a fight. They suddenly came up with an idea to have a bet, and the outcome. The Holy Lord of the Temple of Paragon won. The Sea King stood by his promise and handed one divine item of the Sea Clan to the Holy Lord. After that, the Sea Clan and Temple of Paragon no longer had anything to do with one another. The divine item from the Sea Clan is still in the Temple of Paragon. The Sea King suddenly released the Sea King token. Could it have something to do with the divine item? Elder, you spoke up. Of course, the fox demon answered. The Sea King took a wrong move and lost the bet. I believe that he must feel indignant about it. Is there any news from the Sea King in the Sea King token? Elder Bai asked. The fox demon nodded. It's the Holy Lord's birthday in 7 days. The Sea King claims that he wants to personally come and convey his well wishes. Everyone was taken aback by the fox demon's words. What? The Sea King wants to come? Yes, that is what is conveyed in the Sea King token. Since he released the Sea King token, I'm sure he will stand by it. The fox demon nodded. Their faces darkened. When did the Sea King become this sociable? All this time he refused to have anything to do with the Temple of Paragon when he lost the bet back then. Tens of thousands of years had passed and he suddenly wanted to convey his well wishes for the Holy Lord's birthday. His intentions were obvious. Only the seniors of the Temple of Paragon know about the Holy Lord's death. All these years, we've kept mum and told everyone that the Holy Lord went into seclusion to cultivate. The Sea King might have realized something was off, so he came up with his idea, the fox demon explained with narrowed eyes. The Holy Lord's death was the greatest secret of the Temple of Paragon. Other than the elders, only the guardians and a few of their trusted ones knew about it. Thankfully, the Temple of Paragon had been low-key all along, so the Holy Lord's seclusion wasn't surprising and no one suspected a thing. How did the Sea King even realize? We haven't been in touch with them in a very long time. Elder Hua was puzzled. Have you forgotten that our Holy Lord had a promise with the Sea King? Elder Hua was stunned. The Sea King made himself clear when he handed the divine item to our Holy Lord that the highest authority of the Sea Clan would need to reactivate the divine item after a certain period of time passed. The Holy Lord agreed to his request and that she would invite the Sea King over when needed. If I'm not wrong, we're 6 months over the agreed date, the fox demon said with narrowed eyes. The Holy Lord kept to all her promises, but this time, she had missed the agreed date. And they were 6 months late. The Sea King might have started suspecting them 6 months ago. You're saying that the Sea King already started suspecting that our Holy Lord is no longer alive? Elder Bai asked. Chapter 2109, Sea Clan, 3, the Fox Demon nodded. That wasn't good news for the Temple of Paragon. With their powers, they could sustain the Temple of Paragon's status even without the Holy Lord. However, if everyone else were to learn about the Holy Lord's death, they would probably have a lot of trouble coming in their way. Putting everything aside, the Sea Clan's divine item would be taken away by the Sea King. The Sea King lost the Sea Clan's divine item to our Holy Lord back then. If he learns of the Holy Lord's death, he would come and snatch the divine item away, the Fox Demon said. The Temple of Paragon had no fear of others, but the Sea Clan. He controlled the oceans of both domains. No one from any domain would dare to go against the Sea Clan. It would be disastrous. The Sea King need not do anything else. He could just use his ability to control the oceans and drown the entire mainland. Moreover, countless sea clans in the ocean would heed the Sea King's orders. Are we really going to return the Sea Clan's divine item to the Sea King? Elder Bai asked. Of course not. Elder Hua objected right away. How can we let someone else take away our Holy Lord's belongings? If we really allow that to happen, it would mean that we're incapable. How are we going to answer to her? The elders started discussing it heatedly. The Sea King's sudden appearance indeed disrupted their plans. The Sea King is guessing that our Holy Lord is not doing well. If we just let him know that his assumptions are wrong, everything would be fine, the fox demon suddenly said. Easier said than done. How are we going to let him know? Our Holy Lord has clearly, before the elder could finish his words, the fox demon lifted his arm and the crystal ball appeared. It was an image of Yi Qingtang. The corners of the fox demon's lips kicked up into a cunning smile. Isn't our Holy Lord here? Everyone was taken aback. They looked at Yi Qingtang through the crystal ball. Her appearance and figure, wasn't that the Holy Lord herself? But, we can't confirm this young lattice identity yet. An elder was still concerned. Is it that important? I believe that she's a reincarnated Holy Lord while you have second thoughts. It doesn't matter now. As long as she appears before the Sea King, our problems will be resolved. The fox demon laughed. Fox demon guardian, do you really intend to let her see the Sea King? Even if she's a reincarnated Holy Lord, with her current powers, an elder was hesitant. They were just planning to start grooming Yi Qingtang when the Sea King incident happened. There was no way they could proceed. After all, she was merely at the Paragon level. Wouldn't she be exposed in a matter of minutes in front of the Sea King? I have my ways. Putting that aside, we only have 7 days before our Holy Lord's birthday. How can we just not do anything about it? The fox demon's gaze traveled all over. Everyone instantly understood him. Do we have to inform the other 5 guardians? Elder Bai asked. We can inform them about it, but I'm not sure if they will make it back in time. Alright, I'll go and arrange it. As for the young lady, hand her over to Elder Hua, the fox demon said. Sure, Elder Hua agreed instantly. Chapter 21:10, Congratulations. 1. Several powers in the second domain started paying attention to the news of the Holy Lord's birthday celebration. However, many knew that with their current abilities, they were not fit to attend and likely wouldn't even receive an invitation to the Temple of Paragon celebrations. Wasn't the Holy Lord in seclusion? Perhaps she is out this year. She has been in seclusion for so long, does that mean that her capabilities have also? I wonder if the Watercut Sect will be attending the celebration. Everyone joined the discussion. The Watercut Sect had a strong sphere of influence in the second domain, almost comparable to the Heavenly Wolf Sect. Watercut Sect. I think you should stop joking. The Watercut Sect is powerful in our eyes, but when it comes to the Temple of Paragon, do they even know about the Watercut Sect's existence? Do you not remember when the master of the Watercut Sect tried to act familiar with the deputy division head of the Temple of Paragon? They didn't even end up meeting each other, and the deputy division head was so annoyed that he almost destroyed the entire Watercut Sect. That's scary, but I can't say that it surprises me. The Temple of Paragon has been secretive all along. Those who are able to establish relationships with them are naturally as powerful as them. Powers like the Watercut Sect wouldn't even be considered by the Temple of Paragon. They had a good time gossiping about the Watercut Sect, but once they saw some members of the Watercut Sect walk past, they didn't dare say a single word. It would be a great honor for those in the second domain to just perform a simple act of sending a gift to the Temple of Paragon. Only the best of the best could attend the celebration, others wouldn't even be able to get close to the entrance of the Temple of Paragon. The Temple of Paragon's Holy Lord's birthday celebration was discussed by almost everyone in the second domain. Meanwhile, everyone from the Temple of Paragon began preparing for the celebration. Yi Qingtang didn't know of the happenings at all. Although Elder Hua told her that she could come to the Temple of Paragon to walk around anytime, she didn't dare to do that. She wanted to have nothing to do with them so that they wouldn't destroy her once they realized she wasn't the reincarnated Holy Lord. Apart from resting every day, she regularly visited the floating island to spend time with the little children there. They were extremely talented, and it was only because they were young that their foundation wasn't strong enough yet. Yi Qingtang guided them along with her martial arts knowledge from 300 years later. It was no surprise that the children on the floating island were ecstatic whenever they saw Yi Qingtang. The elders saw everything that happened. They watched as the children improved their foundational skills quickly by adopting unique cultivation methods under Yi Qingtang's guidance. The elders were planning to groom their reincarnated, Holy Lord, after resolving the Sea King's incident. Days went by and Yi Qingtang was preparing to head to the floating island when she was suddenly intercepted by Elder Hua. "Is there anything I can help you with?" Yi Qingtang looked at Elder Hua. She wasn't sure whether it was just her, but Elder Hua seemed to be dressed for an important occasion today. "Are you going to the floating island today?" Elder Hua smiled. Yi Qingtang nodded. She knew that her every move was being watched by the Temple of Paragon, so there was no need to try and hide it. "I don't think you can go to the floating island today, but there's someone else I can take you to. Do you have any time now?" Elder Hua asked politely.